Hi, fourth graders. This is Ms. K, and we're going to continue our poetry unit today. We have a long poem today that we're going to be reading a couple times, so don't worry if you don't understand the whole thing today. It's okay. We're going to keep working with it next lesson, and we'll listen to it more than once so that we can slowly start to comprehend what's happening. So we have a lot of vocab today. Your first word is defiance, and that is a noun, which means disobedience. The next word is ease, which is a feeling of comfort or relaxation. Fraud is a dishonest action, so when you do something and you're lying or not telling the truth. Lusty is an adjective that means healthy and strong. Melancholy is a noun, and that means sadness. Multitude is a noun, and that means a large group. Patrons, noun, people who support things, or fans. So if you're a fan of a football team, you are a patron of that football team. Stern is an adjective that means strict or harsh. Stricken is an adjective that means upset. A visage is a face or the expression on it. And then we have a couple literary vocab words. So hyperbole, that is a type of figurative language, and it's a type of exaggeration. So if somebody says, I've been waiting forever, well, they haven't been waiting forever. They're exaggerating that. So that would be hyperbole. Or I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. They're not going to eat an actual horse. They're just saying that because they're really hungry and horses are big. So any type of exaggeration like that is a hyperbole. And then a quatrain is a 4-line stanza. So if one of the stanzas, each stanza in the poem has 4 lines, that stanza is called a quatrain. All right, let us read our poem. So this is called Casey at Bat, and it's about a baseball game. The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville 9 that day. The score stood 4-2 with but 1 inning more to play. And then when Cooney died at first and Barrows did the same, a sickly silence fell upon the patrons of the game. A straggling few got up to go in deep despair. The rest clung to hope, which springs eternal in the human breast. They thought, if only Casey could but get a whack at that, we'd put up even money now with Casey at the bat. But Flynn preceded Casey, as did also Jimmy Blake, and the former was a hoodoo, while the latter was a cake. So upon that stricken multitude, grim melancholy sat, for there seemed but little chance of Casey getting to the bat. But Flynn let drive a single, to the wonderment of all, and Blake, the much despised, tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had lifted and men saw what had occurred, there was Jimmy safe at second, and Flynn a hugging third. Then from 5,000 throats and more there rose a lusty yell. It rumbled through the valley, it rattled in the dell. It pounded on the mountain and recoiled upon the flat, for Casey, mighty Casey, was advancing to the bat. There was ease in Casey's manner as he stepped into his place. There was pride in Casey's bearing, and a smile lit Casey's face. And when responding to the cheers, he lightly doffed his hat, no stranger in the crowd could doubt 'twas Casey at the bat. 10,000 eyes were on him as he rubbed his hands with dirt. 5,000 tongues applauded when he wiped them on his shirt. Then, while the writhing pitcher ground the ball into his hip, defiance flashed in Casey's eye, a sneer curled Casey's lip. And now the leather-covered sphere came hurling through the air, and Casey stood a-watching in a haughty grandeur there. Close by the sturdy batsman, the ball unheeded speed. That ain't my style, said Casey. Strike one, the umpire said. From the benches, black with people, there went a muffled roar, like the beating of the storm waves on a stern and distant shore. "Kill him! Kill the umpire!" shouted someone on the stand. And it's likely they'd have killed him had not Casey raised his hand. With a smile of Christian charity, great Casey's visage shone. He stilled the rising tumult. He bade the game go on. He signaled to the pitcher, and once more the dun sphere flew. But Casey still ignored it, and the umpire said, "Strike two." "Fraud!" cried the maddened thousands, and echo answered, "Fraud!" But one scornful look from Casey, and the audience was awed. They saw his face grow stern and cold. They saw his muscles strain, and they knew that Casey wouldn't let that ball go by again. The sneer is gone from Casey's lip. His teeth are clenched in hate. He pounds with cruel violence his bat upon the plate. And now the pitcher holds the ball, and now he lets it go. And now the air is shattered by the force of Casey's blow. Oh, somewhere in this favored land, the sun is shining bright. The band is playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light. And somewhere men are laughing, and somewhere children shout. But there is no joy in Mudville. Mighty Casey has struck out. Okay, so like I said, this poem is too complex to completely understand without hearing and reading it multiple times. However, you probably still understood a great deal from your first experience with the poem. The following questions will show just how much you understand about the poem already. So please feel free to rewind the video and listen to me read it once or twice again. Or you can go back into the text yourself and find the information to the questions below. So the first one asks, who is this poem's main character? Number 2, what sport does Casey play? Number 3, why do the fans want Casey to come up to bat? Number 4, what happens when Casey does come up to bat? And number 5 wants you to reread the first stanza and summarize it in your own words. So here is the first stanza. Tell me what is happening, what is going on in this first stanza in your own words. Please make sure to answer these. They're all written responses, so use whole complete sentences if you can. And we'll move on to skills. So we're going to learn about some poetic devices today. We're going to think how this poem uses some of the devices we've already learned in other lessons this unit. So we're going to think back to what we've learned and look through this poem to find them. So first one I want to go over is metaphor, and that's saying that one thing is something else, so comparing two things. Repetition is when you repeat something over and over again, saying the same word or phrase. A simile is the same thing as a metaphor, except you use the word like or as. Personification is giving human traits to something that is not human. And then alliteration is when you use the same sound at the beginning of words that are next to each other. All right, so number 1 wants to know these two phrases, sickly silence and deep despair. What are those two an example of? Number 2, why do you think the poet wanted to emphasize those words? What is so important about a sickly silence or a deep despair? Feel free to use the dictionary if you need to know what some of those words mean. Number 3, in stanza 4, the poet says Blake tore the cover off the ball. Blake didn't really tear up the ball. What is the meaning of this figurative statement? So when they say he tore the cover off the ball, what are they trying to say? Number 4 asks what poetic device is used here. There went up a muffled roar, like the beating of the storm waves on a stern and distant shore. So they're talking about how waves are beating on a shore. Number 5 says the lines above compare two things. So there's a hint for what type of device you're using. Which one of those is talking about comparing two things? So again, read this carefully. Look for that special word that is used when we compare two things. And tell me, what two things are they comparing and how are they being compared? How are they similar? Number 7, here is another piece of stanza 13, and it says it repeats the word somewhere, and we want you to count how many times they repeat that word. So count in this stanza how many times they say the word somewhere. And number 8, why do you think they did that? Why is the word somewhere so important to that stanza? All right, that is all for today. Have a wonderful day. Get on Zoom if you need help, and I'll see you next time. Bye, Adams.